In the ancient Near East, a patriarch's final blessing operated as a binding legal contract. It dictated the exact transfer of wealth, physical property, and divine favor to the next generation. By 1689 BC, Joseph had risen to become a supreme administrative ruler in Egypt. He commands the logistics of the era's dominant earthly empire. Away from the grand architecture of statecraft, a much quieter transfer of power is unfolding. Joseph's father, the patriarch Jacob, is nearing death. He is forced to gather his final fading strength simply to sit upright on his bed. His body is failing. The ancient records note specifically that Jacob's eyes are dim for age. He is physically blind to the two grandsons Joseph has brought into the room. Primogeniture is the exclusive right of inheritance for the eldest child, requiring the firstborn receive the right hand of power. Operating with mathematical precision, Joseph positions the boys. He places the older, Manasseh, at Jacob's right, and the younger, Ephraim, at his left. Every physical requirement is met. Human tradition engineered the optimal outcome, leaving zero room for deviation. Then, the physical structure collapses. Driven by a conviction that overrides his blindness, Jacob reaches out and deliberately crosses his aged arms into an X. The patriarch's right hand, the designated conduit of primary destiny, bypasses the firstborn entirely and lands squarely on the head of the younger boy, Ephraim. With his hands locked in place, Jacob speaks a legal decree. He formally adopts these two grandsons as his own direct heirs, elevating their status to equal that of his own immediate sons. He then moves the proceeding into a cosmic realm. He calls directly upon the angel which redeemed me from all evil to bless the boys. Standing over them, Joseph watches the orderly system he built fracture. He is deeply displeased, viewing his father's actions as a failure of logic and established rule. Joseph physically steps in. He reaches out, grabs his father's arm, and attempts to pry the right hand off to manually correct the placement. Joseph is looking at the birth order and the physical layout of the room. Jacob is looking at something else entirely, his hands held in place by a conviction Joseph cannot see. In this moment, the rigid social architecture Joseph spent his life building is dismantled by a single deliberate movement of his father's wrists. Despite his physical weakness, Jacob refuses to yield to Joseph's superior strength. He pushes back with absolute certainty. "I know it, my son, I know it." The blind seer is looking past the room in Egypt. He is viewing a future where the younger brother's lineage expands to become a vast multitude of nations. This echoes a persistent pattern in these ancient texts. Time and again, established power structures are bypassed as favor falls deliberately upon the younger sibling. He anchors this sweeping vision in his own personal history. Jacob recalls the death of his wife, Rachel, and the exact spot where he buried her on the road to Ephrath, a location today known as Bethlehem. Before the scene ends, Jacob leaves Joseph with one final, unexpected inheritance. He grants his favored son an exclusive, extra portion of land, elevating his share above all his other brothers. This land was not purchased. Jacob specifies its origin, explicitly claiming that it was territory he had taken by force from the Amorites, with his own sword and his own bow. The man who barely had the strength to sit upright on his bed is suddenly speaking as a conqueror, laying claim to territory taken in battle. Jacob's crossed hands were his final act of defiance against the visible world. By refusing to follow the eyes of his son, he ensured his legacy was shaped by what he saw in the dark.